Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering natural health this morning here on your live talk program. And this morning here, we're doing the topic: Who are these true patriots looking out for Americans' well-being? So, who are the patriots looking out for the American well-being or the well-being of the American people? This is what we're going to be looking at here this morning as we look at natural health, as I cover two different articles and cover this thought here. Who are the patriots? Who are the true people looking out for the health and well-being of the citizens of the United States? And this is what we're looking at here. So welcome again to our live talk program. Hopefully you had a blessed night rest and you're ready to take on today, this day that the Lord has given you. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we thank thee again for your true word. We thank you, dear Lord, for your love, and we thank you to show us through Jesus Christ that it is he that loved us, and when we love, we are truly brethren. May you bless us, dear Father, we pray for Christ's sake. Amen. So again, this morning here, we're looking at this very interesting point of view that I want to share with you. Who are these true patriots looking out for the Americans' well-being or health, or your prosperity? This is something that I've thought about many a time because it is something I've observed over the years. This whole concept of who are true Americans, who are true patriots, who are the true people who love the American public. And if you listen a little bit to politicians and then you listen to people who are very patriotic, they will tell you that it is a certain class of people. They could say it's the soldiers, the firemen, it's the heroes, it's the movie stars, it's whoever, and they're the true Americans. So it has had me thinking over the years, who really love the people and who really care for the American people. And this is what I want to meditate upon. So I have two articles to share on two current news that are going on. One is my main focus. The first one is just a blurb that will help me build the building block of this question. So I want you to think about this as I go into it. Who are the true patriots? Who are the true people that really love the American people? Because you hear it all the time. You would think normally it's the politicians or normally it's the whoever. They always have this idea and people try to vie for that that trophy award, as saying they're the ones that truly love America and looking out for the American people, and they're gonna do best by Americans. And this normally fuel nationalism. It normally can fuel racism. It can fuel a whole bunch of other ideology because each group thinking they're looking out for the best interest. And I've thought about this a lot because during the year and so forth, I would keep seeing, I watched quite a few videos from like people like white nationalists. I've covered some of them here. And when I'll be watching, I'll be fascinated because they would speak as if they look out for the best interest of, say, the white race. This is normally the primary group looking out. Then I'll watch some of like the black nationalists or the black that are into, black liberation or so forth. And they would talk as if also they're looking out for the black people. And so it got me thinking in my mind, say, who is looking out for these people? Who is looking out for your best interest? Who wants the best for you? And how does one come to a conclusion what is the best? And then if the person is really somebody to look out for your best interest, why is it that my interest becomes so diminished or removed? So I thought a lot about that. So I want to share that with you this morning here. So I start off this morning here by reading this passage of scripture, and I'll come back to this later on in more depth, but I'll read just one section here, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and I want to read verse 5. Verse 5 says, speaking about love or charity, is that it says, is doth not be of itself unseemly, seek it not her own, is not easily provoked, think it no evil. So there's more there. I'm going to get back to the rest of that beautiful passage of scripture. Now, I would think firstly, to answer the question, so that I don't belabor this, I want to get you to think with me as I go through some of this material, and mostly some of these thoughts. when I ask the question, or I don't know if it's a question or a statement, who are these true patriots? Because you always have these people, and they're the true-blooded American. They truly love the American people. Uh, so then I always think, well, how do you love a group of people if you don't have love? Because firstly, one has to love, because again, love or charity, and I know you might say these people are not about charity, they're about evil, but I'm just saying charity is number one. The main thing I want to put here is seek it not our own. So charity does not seek our own. Hate is very selfish, and that's what it is. Hate is all about me, my own, ours. Charity seek it not our own. So if you ask me straight up as I start, who are the people that truly love the American people? I would say the people who are most loving. Who are the people looking out for the well-being of Americans? I would say people who are, again, loving. Who are the people looking out for your best interest in your health? I would say the people who are loving. Love is the issue. It's not so much skin color, or definitely not skin color. It's definitely not wealth. It's definitely not who works the hardest or who's whatever. It is the person who love. Because if a person is not loving and don't love, well, how can they seek your best interest, even as a fellow citizen, if they're not loving? Because love, when you have love inside of you, you seek not your own. So that means in business and in day-to-day interaction with each other, I can know that if you love, then you look out for my best interest, and your business dealings with me is not all about what it is in it just for you. You want to be able to do a fair deal. A fair deal is that you take care of me, I take care of you. And it doesn't matter if it's 50-60, sorry, 50-50 or 60-40, whatever the split is. It doesn't matter. As long as I get taken care of what I have to get taken care of. In life, not everything always work out where it's a fair trade, so to speak. Sometimes somebody's going to make more than the other, but at least the other person makes something. You can say, well, this person is a true patriot, right? This person is a true loving person. So I often see these people, like, they wrap themselves in the flag. They talk about how they're looking out for the American public, and the only thing getting fatter or fatter is them. If this was a conversation I was having on Tuesday, and if I was talking about the importance of church, I would be talking about the whole idea that you listen to these pastors and they talk about all this garble and this theology, but they couldn't care less for the members. It's all about them. But when you have love, you're gonna not seek your own, your family, your race, your group, people group, your whatever you want to have is not your only focus, because love can't help itself, because love is very charitable. So, because I've often come around people who they're looking out for, say, for blacks or their community or the whites or something, and I would think, well, how are you truly looking out for your own if you're not loving? Because in order for me to even look out for my own, I have to be loving, but I'm going to start looking out for myself. And this is why people will even hurt their kids for their own benefit, because it's all about themselves. I never met a secular person that really into secularism and into ungodly lifestyle that's going to really look out for somebody else, even their own kids. They'll eat them for lunch, probably for dinner. So I'm going to go to my first article. With that in mind, when you think about that, who are these true patriots? Because you hear they talk about themselves and they love the American people, or they love black people more, or they love white people more, or they love Italians or Germans. You know, you're like, okay, but when you meet them, you're like, okay, yeah, right. And who vouching for that? You know, that's just high talk, big talk. So, who are these true patriots looking out for the well-being or the American people well-being? We want to get an answer to that. So here we have this first article in Healthier I want to share as we close out this year. And this again by Maggie Fox over by NBC News. U.S. life expectancy falls for second straight year as drug overdose soar, right? Life expectancy in the United States fell for the second year in a row in 2016. And it's clear the epidemic of drug overdose is at least in part to blame, government researchers said Tuesday. So I'm going to read the rest of the article to you here, but I want you to think about this now. So the life expectancy fell, and this fell due to importers and sellers and distributors of various different drugs. The primary drugs would be tramadol, fentanyl, heroin, and then you could throw in the rest of it like cocaine and so forth. So these are American people selling American people drugs. But when we look, and if you've looked at the heroin epidemic, the fentanyl epidemic, you find out real quickly that people are dying from Xanax, Prozac. Many of them started out before they got to heroin and fentanyl and Xanax, Prozac, and it was their doctors who carelessly and for love of money prescribe these drugs to them. So if I ask the question, who are these true patriots that are looking out for the American people well-being? And then you sort of pause and say, oh, the doctors. And you say some of them, but definitely not all of them. And this is where it becomes sticky. Then you say, wait a minute, as the article going to share, and I'm going to summarize it here before I read, so I read and what you think about it while I'm reading. Think about it, most of the people are dying from heroin, fentanyl, drug overdose. It is stated over the years that they started out with their doctors prescribing them. So far, even the community I live in, I've met quite a few young men in their 20s that are hooked upon some type of prescription drugs given to them by their doctors. So I look at them, and as I'm dealing with them, interacting with them for the gospel's sake and for their sake, I'm questioning my mind, because all of them, I'm talking about their young white males, that their doctors are white or probably Indian, but mostly white in this area for what I've seen. And I say to myself, who are the true patriots that are looking out for these young men? Because, here I'm trying to tell them, probably you need to do some rehab, you need to find the Lord, blah, 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 blah. And so I pause for a second and I say, that's fascinating. Who are the true patriots? Who are these people who love these people more than, say, I love them or you love them? Who is praying for them? Who don't want to see them drop dead? And then who is working for their demise? Because as I say, most of the deaths, as you see from the article, are young white male. So this is over the years have got me thinking, because I said, this is fascinating, because when I watch TV, and I watch especially politicians and true-blooded American, on Facebook, YouTube, they're normally saying, we patriot and we looking out for our own. But I'm saying, who killing you? Who has increased the debt amongst you? And so this is why it becomes very murky, and then it starts to become clear. You start to say, this is some fascinating stuff. Because if you ask them, they'll swear that they're the one who love their own. But how can you love your own if you don't have love? How can you love your own if you don't really love Jesus? If you look out only for yourself? So we're going to keep reading, and then I want you to think about it. Who is killing who? Who is killing who? Because I know somebody said, well, isn't among the black population, the black people are killing themselves. Well, that's the point. If you go to Chicago, you say, who are the patriotic people in the south side of Chicago? You're going to say these people are patriotic? They really love their fellow human being? They love their nation? Or are you going to say these people, man, they're brutal to each other. They hate each other? And that to me would be my conclusion. I wouldn't say these people really looking out for the well-being of their community and their nation. They're trying to destroy each other. And that's the point. Who really are these people? And so we understand that it's very important for you to understand who are the true people who are benefiting and blessing the nation and looking out for the nation, and not get swept up into political talk and into nationalism and racism and, type of group mentality while the group is killing itself. I wouldn't trust myself amongst many of the black people in the community, or in some of these communities, because they're violent. So somebody said, then that means you're not for black people? No, I'm for everybody. It's just the fact that you got to not get blind in patriotism and not understand that there's people out there that are truly looking out for the well-being of their fellow human being. You can't love America without loving the people. If somebody say, I love America, but then they're selling drugs. How do you love America? America is not an entity, it's a group of people. You got to love the people. And if you're not doing right for the people, how can you say, I'm truly patriotic? If you're just looking out for one group and you're willing to see the other get destroyed, how can you say you're truly patriotic when they are, all of them are Americans? It is questionable. I say this also before I keep reading here, that I've noticed over the years I've dealt with people that I've dealt with people that are very hateful, and I thought to myself at first, well, probably they don't like me because of the color of my skin per se, but they like probably people of their their skin color, and then I get to know them a little bit more, and I find out, oh no, they're on some mental drugs. They hate everybody because a hateful person is a hateful person through and through. But they hide their hate by saying, oh no, I love blacks, or oh no, I love whites. But they're looking out for anybody. So why is that important for you for your health? You need to know who's looking out for your best interests, who want to see you prosper, who want to see you do well in life, who want to see you healthy and not suffering from disease and sickness. And then you understand who truly is patriotic, who truly love America or Americans, and don't get caught up into flag waving people who seem like they're for you because they're for your skin color. Because as I say, this drug epidemic I'm reading about is whites killing whites. You go to Chicago, it's blacks killing blacks. They're not for each other. Don't be fooled by that. Whoever is for you is for you. Continue reading here. It says overall life expectancy for baby born in 2016 fell to 78.6 years, a small decline of 0.01%. So that's a good news. At least there's not that much death amongst children being born. And so the NCAHS team found National Center of Health and Statistics. At the same time, mortality from drug overdose rose 21%. This was the first time life expectancy in the U.S. has declined 2 years in a row since decline in 1962 and 1963. The NCHIS, part of the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, said in a statement. The new report shows the decline in life expectancy occurred despite overall decline in U.S. mortality. Statement added, life expectancy is affected by mortality rates, but life expectancy calculations are forward-looking projections, while mortality rates are based upon current factors. The number of people who died, not the rate, went up in 2016. More than 2.7 million died in the U.S. in 2016, a total of 31,618 more deaths than in the U.S. in 2015. Life expectancy falls when people start dying at younger age, and that's what is happening in the U.S. with the epidemic of opiate overdose. Pause again. So just think about this here. So younger people, because again, the opiate epidemic is primarily affecting young men. Synthetic or natural is affecting young men. And so it is the same thing. If you think about it, another time I remember having this type of thought was back in the time when they were having the war in Iraq. And I remember looking at the war in Iraq and said, well, I can't see the justification for that war. I can understand why America was doing it, but not the justification. But those who were promoting the war was constantly basically padding what they were saying with the language of patriotism. And I say, well, that's very interesting, because they were selling it based upon the fact that I'm going to send you young men to war. Then most of them are going to come back, or most of them are going to come back mentally damaged, physically damaged, or in a body bag. So you got to sell that. And the way they sold it was, well, I'm looking out for you. I'm looking out for you. I'm going to make America great again. I'm going to protect America from the bad guys and so forth and so on. I remember watching it, and I remember watching people who were around me. Some people were around me in the sense of churches I went to. They were whipped up into that further, and they believed it. And I said, that's fascinating. As I say, as a student at that point, just trying to understand, wow. Because in my mind, I was like, that's funny. Because if I'm sending you something that is harm, it need to be justified. If it's not justified, do I really love you? Because there's time in life where you could have to risk your life for somebody else. That's fine. Whether it be an emergency to pull the person out or to protect from physical harm. And you could die doing that. But is that truly patriotism? Is that truly love for your fellow man? But yet, somebody could say you could be in a lie, tell a lie, but you're truly doing it to love your fellow man. It would be, if I extend the conversation, it would be the same thing as Hitler. Hitler, did he love the German people? At the time, many Germans would say, yeah, he wanted us to prosper. He wanted us to do better than everybody else. And he was looking out for us. But did he really? To lead it to a war to massacre millions of people? Was that really love for your fellow countrymen? To try to destroy the life of others? Because remember, the premise of love is love seeking not her own. Love does not seek her own. So how can somebody say they love me if they really, because I'm part of them, but they're really destroying everybody's life? This is why so many communities are so devastated, because often the mothers and the fathers know that their kids are selling the drugs, know that their husband and their wives are doling out those drugs in their doctor's office, but they're doing it to benefit them. They're going to get the spoils of all the dead bodies they're created in the society. So they accept it and say, well, they're looking out for me. But that's not love. Because love will not see your son or daughter selling drugs either on the street or in a doctor's office and watching people dying in the community and say, well, but I'm getting the money off of it. They love me. Because soon as you see that turn, and many people learn long term, that person don't love anybody. He's just a user, just for his own benefit. And this is when you know who really loves the people. But somebody said, no, it's my people, they love me. Yeah, right. So, continue with the article. Life expectancy is affected by mortality rate, but life expectancy fall when people start dying at a younger age, and that's what's happening in the U.S. with the epidemic of opiate overdoses. The escalating growth of opiate death is downright frightening, and it's getting worse, says John Arkbach, president and CEO of the Trust of America Health. Every community has been impacted by this crisis and is getting lots of headlines. Yet we're not making the investments and taking the actions needed at anywhere near the level needed to turn the tide. So why we're not, if we love the people? The NCHS found that 63,600 people died of drug overdose in 2016, and the majority of these overdose deaths were unintentional. The death rate from drug overdose rose 18% a year in 2014, and to 2016, the team reported in 1996 6.1 person per every 100,000 people died from drug overdose. The rate rose to 19.8 per 100,000 people in 2016, so that's a triple. There has been a big increase in death from synthetic opioids, including fentanyl and tramadol. There's been a somewhat smaller increase in heroin deaths, and the team found overdose deaths are counts as injuries, and unintentional injuries rose to become the third leading cause of death in 2016 after heart disease and cancer. And as you know, heart disease is primarily by diet. Cancer is primarily by diet. But you know, also with heart disease, many people are dying of heart disease based upon cocaine use, heroin use, based upon steroid use. So even heart disease, I'm telling you, the drug epidemic problem is bigger than what they're stating, because I've known even recently how many people that have died from drug use, and they died because their heart failed. But the heart failed because it was ballooned up by drugs. Human growth hormone is another thing that blows up the heart and cause you to die from heart. So anyhow, just saying that I believe the number is much bigger. Men were far more likely to die from drug overdose than women were, but other reports have found a growing number of opiate overdose among women. Still, as in any other country, men die younger than women. Male life expectancy fell from 76.3 in 2015 to 76.1 in 2016, while female life expectancy stayed at a steady 81.1. If you make it to 65, you are likely to live longer than 78. People who were 65 years old in 2016 can expect to live another 19 years. The the NCHS team projected it breaks down to almost 21 years more for women and 18 years more for men. So if you can get through your terrible younger than 65 years, then you can just expect another 18 to 21 years. That's significant. Many people are looking at retirement at 65, not thinking that they're going to live for another, what is it here, 18 to 21 years. You almost live a full adult life. You can start back kindergarten and come up and you still be doing good. U.S. life expectancy does not stack up well compared to other rich countries. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development keeps an index of life expectancy, and the U.S. falls between Chile and Turkey in terms of average rate, and far behind Britain and France and Germany. Iceland, Switzerland, Japan have the longest life expectancy, and South Africa has the lowest. The team also South Africa is having a major drug problem also there. But anyhow, the team also look at the infant mortality rate, which barely changed in 2016, but which also falls behind the record of other developed countries. The 10 leading causes of infant deaths in 2016 account for 67% of all infant deaths in the United States, report leads. They include congenital birth defects, low birth rate, and sudden infant death syndromes. All of those, not surprising. Congenital birth defect, low birth weight, and sudden infant death syndromes make sense since most people are malnourished while eating so much food. In 2016, 23,161 babies under the age of 1 died in the U.S., 294 fewer than in 2015. So that is a bright spot. All right, so I'm going to go to the second article. Remember our premise. Who are these true patriots looking out for the American people? Because when you understand love, you understand that it's not as how people view it. Who are these true people who are saying, yeah, I'm looking out for the American people. I love the American people. And you always hear this. I always sometimes just sit there, ponder when somebody say it. And sometimes I laugh because I think it's a gimmick. They really love the American people. They can't even love their brother and sister, literally, their blood brother and sister, much less the whole country. And they're going to look out for the well-being of the whole country, but they can't look out for the people in the community. Fascinating. Now, here, you have it. This article now is my main focus. Kmart to pay $32.3 million to settle healthcare related whistleblower case. So this is Kmart, which is owned by Sears, and I say this to you as I start reading just in case I forget. Remember, Sears, they're going financially down, they're going belly up. Amazon.com are the other online retailers also is basically killing most of their business. But this is what they're doing. So Kmart Corp has agreed to pay $32.3 million to settle a whistleblower lawsuit alleging its pharmacies overcharge federal health care programs and some private insurance for generic prescription drug, federal official announced Friday. The big box department store chain, which is owned by Sears Holding Corp., withheld certain information from Medicare Part D, Medicaid, and TRICARE, the health insurance provider for members of the military and their families, the Department of Justice says. So Kmart, which is owned by Sears Holdings, basically sold generic drugs, summarize and then I'll read the rest. Summarize here, sold generic drugs, then overcharge by keeping certain information from the insurance companies and from the government as to what type of drugs it was. Was it the generic drugs or was it the name brand stuff? And they did it not only to Medicaid, Part D, but also Medicaid. So these are our grandparents and so forth system they're taken from, and the poor people system. So just think about that while you think about, especially what has happened in the last few weeks with the assault on, the poor, the constant beating on of the poor, the taking away of the health insurance and all that type of stuff that they're trying to do and doing. But think about it, the idea that, oh no, who are the true Americans are the people who are the multi-millionaires and billionaires, the people who own and investors in Sears and Kmart and those companies. Just think about, these are the people who they'll hold up to us and say, these are the true Americans. They need a tax break. They need a bank bailout. They need to be saved because they're too big to fail. But yet, not only did they rip off the poor people and old people, but they were ripping off TRICARE, which is the health provider, and ding 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 for the military and their families. These are the people that they glorified and say, oh yeah, we honor these American troops, and you can't disrespect them by, protesting the flag because of the injustice black people are serving. And you go to every patriotic loving American and they'll decry anything that happened to America because they say, oh, it's a disrespect to the troops. Right? But I should expect to go online, which I didn't. What I didn't see what I'm talking ahead of myself, but I didn't see the outcry against Sears Holding and Kmart. This settlement should have triggered an immediate national boycott protest. It probably should have finished off Sears. Because you see, to me, if they didn't talk this way, it wouldn't matter. This would be just a side news in my mind. Me over here, in my different thinking. If they didn't talk the way they talk, it wouldn't matter. But because they try to make it seem like they love America more than anybody else, and they love Americans, especially white Americans, more than anybody else, I have a problem with this. And if you're over here taking care of our problem, I'm thinking too much. Are you going to be ripping off the people who are taking care of the health of the people who went abroad, fought, as they say, to give these people protection, to protect America for the enemy foreign, as everyone swear to the American flag? You protect Americans, because you're not swearing for the flag, you're swearing to the American people to me. You protect Americans from enemy both within and without. And these people went and rip off the military and their families, because by ripping off TRICARE, you're basically affecting the bottom line for the people. Because if you make it more expensive to provide health for the people who are insured, you're raising the premium, and you're going to hurt the government, which is hurt the taxpayer, and you're hurting the American public. People think you swear to a flag. You don't swear to a flag, you swear to the people. You swear that says, I'm with these people, and I'm willing to join with them and protect these people from enemy within. So as a patriotic duty, I think, and this is where most of the patriots who don't understand what they're talking about, and they're being duped by these politicians, it's a good job this whistleblower did, and his name's going to come up in a second. And it's a good job the government did to clamp down on them and cause them to pay back some of the money to the American taxpayer for this ripoff that they did. But these guys are the guys that are held up as a true American because, oh yeah, they look out for the troops. They don't look out for no troops. They're not looking out for the well-being of their own fellow citizens who went and fought to protect America from enemies foreign. And a true patriot would say, no, you do this is not only a suit you should have. You should be boycotted because you're ripping off us. You're an enemy within because you're making health insurance so expensive. And then instead of the politicians take up the frame and say, you know what, Ben, part of the problem with the cost of health insurance in America is not just the sickness of the people and the poor people. Part of the problem is that there's constantly this constant push by pharmaceutical companies and the medical establishment and pharmacies to rip off the people and jack up the price of stuff and make the stuff overly expensive so that nobody can afford it. But nobody talks about that. They say, oh no, the problem is all these poor people that are uninsured. That is a strain on the system, I agree. But that is not the only strain. If one is honest, one would say a big part of the strain is that constant settling lawsuits. It's just too much settling going on. And if you keep settling, well, who's being ripped off? It's the general public. Because Sears and Kmart just pass on the rip-off to the public. and just, I mean, basically pass on the cost instead of saying, you know what happened, who did this, and get to the bottom of it, and somebody go to prison. But these same people say, no, I'm patriotic. Is the general criminal should be locked up. Yeah, but how about this person here, these people here, who intentionally were told from three different entities? So this is not accident. This is purpose. And y'all keep reading. So here, as I say, you hear them. Oh yeah, we're looking out for the American military family. The person who look out for the American military family is a person who would not send them into unnecessary harm way if it is necessary, because I said war is part of life, sad to say, if necessary. But if it's not necessary, how can you say you're patriotic? If you're going to send a police into a place where it is going to be basically a suicide mission, that's not you looking out for the people, so to speak. So we keep reading. Pharmacies that are not fully transparent about drug pricing can cause federal health programs to overpay on for prescription drugs. Chad Riedler, the acting assistant attorney general of the Department of Civil Division, said in a statement, this settlement should put pharmacists on notice that there will be a consequence if they attempt to improperly increase payment from taxpayers funded health programs by masking the true price that they charge the general public for the same drugs. The lawsuit stemmed from 2008. So just in case somebody's saying, well, this is happening on the Trump watch. Nothing to do with that. It's to do with people who are faithful to their jobs, no matter who is in presidency. As a matter of fact, that's another thing here where people talk about patriotism. Most of these corporations that they put somebody as the head of the corporation because they politically donate or because they supported a candidate, whether at the state level or the national level. Most of those people are the people who are causing the problem in the society because they're just there because they gave somebody some favors. The people who are really keeping the system going are the regular person every day going out to work doing their job, and they're not there because they're politically connected. They're there because it's a job and they do their job. That's the reality. Again, they make it seem like, oh, it's that CEO or that guy that got put in a job at some public entity, public entity that is really, is really keeping the system going. No, it's that regular person who gets up every day and go to work and they're just there for their jobs. That's the people going. Most of these people, political appointed, they're a joke. They don't run these systems good and they're corrupt. Anyhow, so 2008, just in case somebody's thinking ahead of themselves, lawsuit stems from 2008 and was brought via the whistleblower provision in False Claim Act, a federal law that makes it illegal for a person or an organization to make a false filing in any federal healthcare program. The complaint was filed on behalf of a former Kmart pharmacist, James Garb. According to the suit, in one case, Kmart had sold a 30-day supply of generic version of prescription drug for $5 to customers of its discount program, but then filed for reimbursement from the government for $152 for that same drug for its Medicare customers. So if you understand here, that's just Medicare. Then they went on ahead, from what I'm getting, and do Medicaid, and then they did TRICARE. So that's a 30 time if you're calculating 30. So $5, and then they charge $152. So 30 times. You can't but be rich, and you can't but make a lot of profit if you selling the product, the market value of the product you're selling is $5, and then you go ahead, leave out certain information off the form, so you charge your full, as if it was a name brand product, you charge $150. And then somebody say, oh no, these CEOs, oh, they're working harder than any of the Americans. If you ever go to a restaurant or go and see some landscape or construction zone and you see a Mexicans, oh, these CEOs, they work harder than these Mexicans. So then they need extra special tax break because we need to thank them for making America great. This is what they're telling us. But that's not true. Again, if you can have a product that is the market value is $5 and you can go ahead and charge 30 times $150, how can you even see us right now be having financial problems with this level of thievery? Continue Garb will receive a whistleblower reward of $9.3 million. So I hope he enjoys it, because there's some good money there for from a pharmacy to a multimillionaire, which amounts to 29% of the federal government recovery. His attorney says, and probably the attorney will receive probably 30% of that, so he probably get three. The case was heard in U.S. District Court in Southern District of Illinois. This was a hard-fought victory for our client and for taxpayers, says Larry Zoglin, an attorney for the Washington, D.C. based Phillip and Cohen, which represent Garb. It is wrong for the pharmacy to charge government healthcare programs more than it charged cash paying customers for the same prescription. Sears Holding did not immediately respond to requests for comment on Saturday. So, if you've been following the news, most naturally, you've been hearing this constant, just it's like a parade. You know, you've ever seen a parade and there's these guys out front and they're beating a drum and there's somebody blowing a bugle and then they're high stepping and marching. And if it's not Sears, then it's Wells Fargo, and then it's Chase Manhattan, and then it's, if it's not one of these banks, one of these big corporations, ripping off the American people. And then when it's time for the politician to do their bidding, they say, oh, look, you see one of these rip-off artists, corporation CEOs, they need all the tax break they can get because they're true American patriots and they love the American people and they're going to put Americans back to work. You're like, okay, here we go. And they say, open and swallow this medicine. So here we have it. This is what is constantly going on. Now, I'm going to say here, because of the sake of possibility, there's always a probability and a possibility that probably for every one or every 10 of these cases, there are probably one or two that probably the government overreach. There's always a possibility because there's corruption on all sides, as they say, all sides. But when you have so much of these cases where there is clear, like what happened in the Wells Fargo situation, where they were clearly caught red-handed, opening all these accounts, ripping off the general public so they can make more money and lying on these people so they had accounts when they didn't have accounts. When you have these clear things going on, but yet everything is couched in this concept of patriotism, that it makes me question it. I question it because if it was, they're just doing it because they say we're just business. But they're doing it and then they're wrapping themselves in a flag. And then I realize, oh, that is a smokescreen, hypocrisy to hide wickedness. They're just doing it so that you don't see, and I don't see, that the people who are really destroying America and not making America great is not just the people who they're pointing to and say, hey, look at these foreigners, because that's who they're blaming right now. Look at these Mexicans, because they're rapists and they're this. But they're not talking about the greed and the theft and the wickedness that being heaped up on American people, this runaway inflation that they're not talking about because they hide it with their funny business, mathematics and accounting. And so many people not able to afford and be able to attain the American dreams who are working full time. They're not talking about that. What they're talking about is that, oh, that's not the evil that is being perpetrated in the American public. The evil being perpetrated in the American public is probably the black guys over there in Chicago shooting up each other. That's a problem. That's a major problem. That's a headache. But let's talk about all the headaches that are going on. And let's talk about the constant ramping up and inflation where it's so expensive to live because healthcare is out of control. But nobody's not talking about, well, some people, every now and then come in the news and then it goes away when it's time for political votes, that a lot of the healthcare costs is tied into just pure theft by the CEOs and by the rich people in the country who controls the pharmaceutical companies. Pure theft when it comes on to people who are dealing with the insurance companies. It is a control system to rip off the poor. Because the rich have plenty of money to go around and wasting away in vaults, in banks. This is what needs to be talked about. And when we talk about who are true patriots, let's talk about people who, probably that guy that's out there in front of your supermarket ringing that bell to collect some money for the poor people for some food banks. He's probably the true patriot. Let's wrap him in a flag and say, here's a true patriot here. Here's the person looking out for the American people. And I more believe that than to believe that these people over there, they're the true patriots, and they constantly get. Look at all these CEOs. Every single one of them in the recent years, or most of them, I should say, have been caught ripping off the people, overcharging for stuff, just lying, just pure theft. I don't know how the Wells Fargo CEOs and workers did not go to prison for that, for doing such a wickedness to the American public. But yet they did this. So when you consider now, how do you know who are truly patriotic? Say you're listening to me here from another country. How you know in your country who's really looking out for the American people? Because somebody said, well, the warmongers. Really? As I said with Hitler, how was Hitler in Germany looking out for those people? They said, well, he willing to kill everybody for us. Really, that's really looking out for you? And you really to send your kids to become basically cannon fodder? That's looking out. Well, the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible teach true patriotism or true love for your own, your people, is that you have to have love. So I'm going to read 1 Corinthians 13, which to me paints a different picture. And Christ painted a different picture. Christ came to the earth to show what true love is. And if you understand that love, you don't get caught up into, draping yourself with flag like it's a window or your window. You understand what true love is, and you understand that a person I hate, I don't care what they tell me, they don't love their own. I don't care who the person is. If a person is, say they're Asian, and they hate everybody else but love their own, they don't really love their own. Some of the worst despots came from Asia, and they weren't religious. They were just killing everybody and killing their own people, massacring them to be great. And that's the whole point. You see, all of this is happening. Sears is going down, and so the thieving starts. They're trying to save their skin. People will do whatever to be great, but they're not doing it because they love their people. They might use that language, but you can't be fooled by that. So here, I'll start off from the top here, 1 Corinthians 13. It says, though I speak with the tongue of men and angels and have not charity, I've become a sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. The saying always go that empty vessels make the most noise. Here, it doesn't say make noise. It says the empty vessel or the person who sounds like an empty vessel. They're not empty because sometimes they're very smart in fooling up the people, making a fool of the people. They speak with the tongues of men and of angels. When you hear them, it's like, oh, beautiful. Think about it. Some of the worst offenders when it comes on to hurting the American people are the megachurch pastors. The number one love pastor in America is the most dangerous person to America, to me. One of the most dangerous person. He's up there to me with Popat and whatever, because he fooled the people up with his sweet speech. And people love listening to that garbage because it sounds good, but it's not real charity. And so it just becomes empty talk. It's an empty suit, as they say. And then the person will say, oh no, I'm a theologian, so don't ask me that question. I just talk motivation. Yeah, you better say that, because there's nothing there. Sounding brass and tinkling cymbal is lightweight, fluff. That's another way to say it. Though I speak with the tongue of men and the angel and have not charity, I talk fluff. I am fluff. It's just ain't nothing there. You can't eat whipped cream and survive. I don't care if you eat 10 pounds of whipped cream a day, you'll die. All you get in is fat and air and probably a little bit of nutrients and a whole bunch of sugar. Fluff. Puffy stuff. Verse 2. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have faith, all faith, so that I could remove mountains and have not charity or love, I am nothing. Again, you could say, somebody say, oh no, I'm going to teach you some prophecy. Fluff. Lightweight. I see people follow these people by the thousands, and I'm like, they're so. Anyhow. So, though I have all faith, you say, I have faith. Yeah, some people, they're so faithful that they have no faith. Because the faith is junk faith. It doesn't translate into life. It's just talk. And so when you understand this, you understand what truly is true value. Who is looking out? I tell you, this is it. Somebody said, well, who, Lord, is a true American? I say these Amish over there living quietly by themselves. I'm not saying really because they're just looking out for themselves. But at least they're not causing no trouble. You don't hear them, at least so far in life. I haven't heard a lot of news out of them They don't do no gang banging. They're not trying to go overthrow nobody's nation. They're not trying to, run corporatism and calling capitalism the American way. They're not doing anything. They're just doing your thing. You're not the primary corrosion and destruction of the American public. That's what I look up and say. That's truly who is my neighbor.